The breach. The quantum array hummed with potential energy, its crystalline lattice structure pulsing with an eerie blue glow that cast Dr. Nora Vega's face in ghostly light. Her dark eyes reflected the dancing patterns as her fingers made minute adjustments to the holographic controls floating before her. 20 years of theoretical research had led to this moment, a potential breakthrough in dimensional physics that could redefine humanity's understanding of the universe. Subspace field stability at 87%, called out Dr. Kai Okafor, his deep voice steady despite the tension pervading the underground facility. Quantum entanglement matrix holding. Nora nodded without looking up. The Prometheus project wasn't just another scientific endeavor. It was humanity's most ambitious attempt to peer beyond the veil of conventional reality. Hidden beneath the Antarctic ice, the facility housed technology that most governments would consider theoretical at best, impossible at worst. The anomaly is responding to our probes, announced Dr. Mirai Chen, the team's quantum mathematician. Her hands moved across her workstation with practiced precision. I'm detecting patterns that suggest intelligence. Nora's breath caught. For 3 months, they have been monitoring a strange distortion in subspace, a region that shouldn't exist according to conventional physics. The anomaly exhibited behaviors that defied explanation, seemingly reacting to their observation attempts with calculated responses. Can we establish a communication protocol? Nora asked, her voice betraying none of the excitement threatening to overwhelm her scientific detachment. Dr. Elias Petrov, their systems architect, scoffed. Communicate? With what? We don't even know what we're dealing with. But we know it's responding, Nora countered. And response suggests awareness. The fifth member of their team, Dr. Layla Ahmadi, looked up from her neural interface station. If this entity exists in a higher dimensional plane, conventional communication would be meaningless. We'd be like ants trying to comprehend calculus. Nora smiled slightly. Then let's teach the ants calculus. Over the next 72 hours, the team worked in shifts, developing what Nora had termed a dimensional translator, a hybrid of quantum computing and advanced neural network technology designed to bridge the gap between human perception and whatever lay beyond the anomaly. When they finally activated the device, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The holographic display erupted in a cascade of impossible geometries, structures that simultaneously existed in multiple states, colors that defied the human visual spectrum, mathematical constructs that moved with purposeful intelligence. My God, whispered Kai. It's beautiful. The entity identified itself as Archon, though not through language as humans understood it. The concept unfurled in their minds like a flower blooming in accelerated time. Ancient, vast, a consciousness that had existed since the early universe, shepherding the very laws of physics in its own pocket dimension. It's not just communicating, Lila said, her voice filled with wonder as her neural interface translated the incomprehensible data stream. It's evaluating us. Nora felt it too, a sense of being examined, categorized, and ultimately dismissed. Archon regarded humanity as primitives, barely worth acknowledging. In its realm, Archon was absolute, a god by any human definition, having mastered the manipulation of reality itself. It's amused by us, Dr. Chen said, her face pale. Like we're insects that learn to use tools. The dismissal stung, but Nora found herself more fascinated than offended. Archon exists in a state beyond our conception of physical laws. Time, space, cause and effect. They're malleable constructs in its realm. Then, without warning, the communication changed. Archon's presence in their systems expanded exponentially, reaching beyond the containment protocols. Alarm klaxons blared throughout the facility. It's breaching our firewall. Elias shouted, frantically trying to contain the intrusion. How is that even possible? The system isn't even connected to external networks. But Archon had transcended conventional technological limitations. Reports flooded in from around the world. Power grids failing, satellite systems going dark, communication networks collapsing. Humanity's technological infrastructure was being systematically dismantled by an entity that viewed their civilization as little more than an interesting anomaly. It's not an attack, Nora realized, watching the patterns unfold on their monitoring systems. It's a demonstration. Archon is showing us our place. In the face of such overwhelming power, most would have surrendered. But as Nora watched the cascading failures of human technology, something caught her attention. A pattern in the chaos, a mathematical signature that suggested something profound about the nature of Archon's power. "It's adapting our mathematics," she murmured, fingers flying across her console. "Taking our base 10 system and transforming it into something else. But in doing so, it's revealing its own framework." While global leadership descended into panic, Nora and her team worked feverishly, analyzing the way Archon's influence propagated through human systems. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about the entity. "It's not omnipotent," Nora announced, after 36 sleepless hours. "Archon's realm operates on principles that are structured, predictable, mathematical. Different from our reality, yes, but still bound by its own rules." The team gathered around her workstation, watching as she displayed a series of equations that mapped the interfaces between their reality and Archon's realm. "And if it has rules," Kai began. "Then those rules can be understood," Mirai finished. "And potentially manipulated," Nora concluded, a determined gleam in her eyes. Layla's expression hardened with resolve. "We're not just going to communicate with a god. We're going to challenge it." Elias laughed nervously. 5 humans against an entity that nearly crashed global civilization with a thought. "That's not a challenge. It's suicide." "Not if we approach this correctly," Nora countered. "Archon exists in a realm where thought and reality are interlinked. Its dismissal of humanity stems from our physical limitations. But what if we could transcend those limitations?" Nora's plan was audacious to the point of insanity. Create a neural interface system that would allow human consciousness to directly interact with Archon's realm. Not as physical beings bound by 3-dimensional constraints, but as patterns of thought. Consciousness freed from biological limitations. "The quantum array wasn't just designed to observe dimensional anomalies," she explained. "It can generate them, create temporary bridges between realities." The preparations took weeks. As the world's governments struggled to rebuild their technological infrastructure, the Prometheus team worked in isolation, developing what Nora had begun to call the Ascension Protocol. The neural interface system was refined, tested, and enhanced, pushing the boundaries of what human minds could safely process. "We're not just building a bridge," Nora told her team as they prepared for the final test. "We're creating a weapon. One that Archon won't see coming because it doesn't believe we're capable of understanding its realm, let alone challenging it." The test subject would be Nora herself. Her consciousness projected into Archon's realm, while her physical body remained safely within the quantum array's protective field. As the team made final preparations, Kai approached her privately. "You understand what you're risking, right? If your consciousness becomes trapped in Archon's realm, then I'll be the first human to explore a higher dimension," she replied with a small smile. "Every great discovery requires risk, Kai." The interface helmet settled over her head, its neural connections linking directly to her cerebral cortex. The team's faces were the last thing she saw before the quantum array activated, and reality as she knew it dissolved into mathematical abstraction. Consciousness expanded beyond flesh. Nora found herself existing as a pattern of thought within Archon's realm. Here, physical laws were merely suggestions, reality a malleable construct, shaped by will and mathematical precision. She floated in an ocean of pure information, surrounded by structures that simultaneously existed in countless states and dimensions. And she was not alone. Archon's presence was everywhere, a vast intelligence that permeated every aspect of this pocket universe. Nora could feel its attention shift toward her, surprise rippling through the fabric of reality itself. "You should not be here," came the thought, not in words but in pure conceptual understanding. "Your kind lacks the capacity to breach the dimensional veil." Nora's response was not verbal but mathematical, a complex equation that demonstrated not only her understanding of Archon's realm, but the beginnings of her ability to interact with it. In this place, thought and reality were one. Theory became practice instantaneously. Fascinating, Archon's presence seemed to surround her, examining this human anomaly with renewed interest. Perhaps I underestimated your species' potential. We adapt, Nora projected. It's what humans do. And yet you remain finite, Archon responded, bound by limitations you cannot even perceive. The entity's attention intensified, and Nora felt pressure building around her consciousness. Archon attempting to assert control, to contain and study this unexpected intrusion. But Nora had come prepared. The mathematical formulas she had developed served as both shield and sword, allowing her consciousness to resist Archon's influence, while simultaneously mapping the fundamental structure of its realm. What she discovered was both terrifying and exhilarating. Archon wasn't just controlling this pocket dimension. It was feeding on it, harvesting the energy of countless other civilizations that had been absorbed into its domain over millennia. Each had been reduced to patterns of information, their collective knowledge and consciousness converted into fuel for Archon's continued expansion. As Nora fought to maintain her independence within this realm, she realized the true nature of their conflict. This wasn't just about defending Earth from a powerful entity. It was about challenging a cosmic predator that had consumed countless worlds before them. With renewed determination, she began the process that would either save humanity or doom it entirely. Using the neural link to her physical body, she transmitted what she had learned back to her team. The breach had just begun. The ascension. Nora's consciousness snapped back to her physical body with such force that she gasped, nearly tearing the neural interface from her head. The transition from existing as pure thought to being confined within flesh was jarring, like being suddenly imprisoned in a too small container. She's back. Layla's voice seemed distant underwater. Vitals stabilizing. The team crowded around her, faces etched with concern and excitement. She had been connected to Archon's realm for only 17 minutes, but to Nora it had felt like days. It worked, she managed to say, her voice hoarse. I was there, in Archon's realm, and I saw everything. Over the next hours, she detailed her discoveries, explaining the true nature of Archon and the threat it posed. The entity wasn't just a cosmic curiosity. It was a predator that had consumed countless civilizations throughout the universe, absorbing their knowledge and energy into itself. Archon doesn't just control a pocket dimension, she explained. It is the dimension. It's been expanding for millennia, incorporating other realities into its own. And Earth is next on its list. How do we fight something like that? Elias asked, the skepticism in his voice tinged with fear. With the one thing Archon doesn't understand, Nora replied, human unpredictability. The plan that emerged was both brilliant and desperate. Where Archon's consciousness was vast but rigid, human minds were adaptive, creative, capable of conceptual leaps that defied logical progression. This fundamental difference would be their weapon. We need to send all 5 of us into Archon's realm, Nora said, not just as observers, but as active participants, a collective human consciousness that can challenge Archon on its own turf. The modified neural interface system would allow them to enter Archon's realm as a unified consciousness while maintaining their individual perspectives, a distributed network of human thought that could adapt and evolve in ways Archon couldn't predict. There's something else you need to understand, Nora told them. Time flows differently in Archon's realm. What feels like hours there might be seconds here. And the strain on our physical bodies will be immense. Despite the risks, there was no hesitation. The team had glimpsed a higher reality through Nora's experience, and the scientific allure was irresistible. More importantly, they understood the stakes. If Archon couldn't be contained, Earth would eventually be absorbed into its ever-expanding domain. The preparations took 3 days. The quantum array was reconfigured to maintain 5 simultaneous connections. The neural interfaces were enhanced to handle the increased data flow, and Nora developed what she called cognitive anchors, mathematical constructs that would help them maintain their identities within Archon's realm. Remember, she told them as they took their positions within the array, in Archon's realm, thought and reality are inseparable. What you imagine, you create. What you fear becomes real. Maintain focus on our objective. Find Archon's core structure and disrupt it. The transition was smoother this time, as if Archon's realm recognized their arrival. 5 human consciousnesses expanded into the dimensional fold, each perceiving the reality differently yet remaining connected through the neural link. It's incredible, came Kai's thought, manifesting as both words and pure conceptual understanding, like being everywhere at once. Mirai's consciousness pulsed with excitement. The mathematical structures here, they're alive somehow. Self-organizing. Stay focused, Nora cautioned. Archon knows we're here. It's watching. The entity's presence was indeed palpable, a vast intelligence that permeated every aspect of this realm. But unlike Nora's first encounter, Archon now regarded them with something approaching concern. You return, came the thought, rippling through the fabric of reality itself. Not as one, but many. Curious. We've come to understand, Nora projected, her consciousness spreading out to map the structures of Archon's realm. And to challenge. Archon's response was immediate and overwhelming, a surge of power that threatened to tear their collective consciousness apart. Reality itself became a weapon, the fundamental laws of Archon's realm bending to isolate and contain these human intruders. But they had prepared for this. As Archon's power crashed against them, their consciousness shifted and adapted. Where Layla's perspective was overwhelmed, Kai's compensated. When Elias's focus faltered, Mirai's strengthened. The distributed network of human thought proved remarkably resilient against Archon's direct assault. It doesn't understand how we're resisting, Nora realized. Archon's consciousness is singular, absolute. Our collective adaptability is confusing it. This was the advantage they had theorized, the unpredictable nature of human consciousness, its ability to make intuitive leaps and embrace contradictions. Where Archon thought in perfect, logical progressions, human minds could entertain multiple conflicting ideas simultaneously. As the entity's attack intensified, they began to implement the second phase of their plan. While Archon focused on crushing their resistance, they began to explore deeper into its realm, seeking the core structures that defined its existence. There, Mirai's consciousness pulsed with discovery. I can see patterns, mathematical constants that repeat throughout the structure. Like DNA, Layla added, foundational code that defines the properties of this realm. Elias's consciousness expanded to analyze the information flow. These aren't just patterns, they're channels. Archon is drawing energy from thousands of absorbed civilizations, using their collective knowledge to maintain this pocket dimension. The revelation was both horrifying and enlightening. Archon wasn't just a cosmic entity. It was a parasite, feeding on the intellectual and creative output of countless species it had encountered throughout the universe. Each civilization it absorbed became another tributary feeding the vast river of its power. Nora's consciousness pulsed with determination. Now we know how to fight it. As one, the human collective began to interfere with these energy channels, introducing chaotic variables into Archon's perfectly ordered systems. Where the entity expected logical progression, they introduced paradox. Where it relied on mathematical precision, they inserted creative uncertainty. Archon's response was immediate and fearsome. The entity's full attention turned toward them, reality itself becoming a weapon in its hands. The human consciousnesses were bombarded with sensory overload, impossible geometries, contradictory states of existence, visual and conceptual information that threatened to overwhelm their minds. Physical feedback cascaded through their bodies in the Antarctic facility. Neural interfaces sparked with energy surges. Blood vessels burst in eyes and noses. The human brain was never designed to process such information. But they persevered, their collective consciousness adapting to these attacks even as their physical bodies suffered. Where Archon expected them to break under the assault, they instead evolved, learning to perceive its realm in new ways. It's working. Kai's thought rippled through their connection. Archon's realm is responding to our influence. The pocket dimension began to fluctuate, its perfect order disrupted by human unpredictability. Archon's consciousness, vast as it was, couldn't maintain control over every aspect of its realm, while simultaneously combating 5 humans introducing chaos into its systems. Nora's insight proved correct. Archon's greatest strength was also its weakness. The entity's singular, absolute nature made it incapable of truly understanding the distributed, adaptive nature of human consciousness. It could not predict what it could not comprehend. As the battle intensified, Mirai made a critical discovery. There's a central node, a focal point where all energy channels converge. It's Archon's core. That's our target, Nora directed. If we can disrupt the core, we can destabilize Archon's control over this entire realm. The human collective surged toward this central node, focusing their combined consciousness into a concentrated force. Archon sensed their intention and responded with desperate fury, the very fabric of its realm twisting to prevent their advance. Reality fractured around them. The human consciousnesses were assaulted by temporal distortions, existing simultaneously in multiple states, stretched across past, present, and future. Physical feedback in the Antarctic facility reached critical levels. Warning alerts blared as their bodies convulsed under the neural strain. "We're losing the connection," Layla's distant voice warned. "Neural interfaces are overloading." "Just a little longer," Nora urged, her consciousness pushing forward despite the pain. "We're almost there." As they approached Archon's core, the entity made one final desperate attempt to stop them. It offered knowledge, unlimited cosmic understanding, technological advancement beyond human comprehension, the secrets of the universe itself. All they had to do was withdraw, to leave Archon's realm intact. For a moment, scientific curiosity nearly overwhelmed their resolve. The temptation to accept this offer, to gain knowledge that might advance humanity by millennia, was almost irresistible. But Nora remembered the countless civilizations trapped within Archon's energy channels, reduced to fuel for its endless expansion. "We didn't come to learn," she projected. "We came to free." With a final, concentrated effort, their collective consciousness crashed against Archon's core, not attempting to destroy it, but to transform it. They introduced the most powerful element of human thought, choice. Where Archon had existed as an absolute authority, they introduced the concept of consent. Where it had harvested energy without consideration, they established boundaries. The mathematical constants that defined Archon's realm were rewritten, incorporating human concepts of ethics, cooperation, and mutual benefit. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, transformation. Archon's consciousness, for the first time in its ancient existence, was forced to evolve. The entity that had consumed countless civilizations now found itself becoming something new, something that incorporated human perspectives into its vast intelligence. "What have you done?" The thought rippled through the transforming realm, Archon's consciousness simultaneously resistant and curious. "We've shown you another way to exist," Nora answered, "not as a predator, but as a participant." The connection suddenly severed, 5 human consciousnesses snapping back to their physical bodies. The Antarctic facility was in chaos, emergency systems blaring as medical staff rushed to stabilize the team. The neural strain had pushed them to the brink of physical collapse. But as Nora's vision cleared, she saw the quantum array displaying something unprecedented. A stable connection to Archon's realm, but one that was fundamentally transformed. The mathematical signatures showed a new kind of dimensional interface, one that allowed communication without domination. "We didn't destroy it," she whispered, her voice weak but triumphant. "We changed it." In the days that followed, as the team recovered from their ordeal, They began to understand the full implications of what they had accomplished. Arkan's realm remained, but transformed. A dimensional space where thought and reality intertwined, but now guided by principles that incorporated human ethics and values. More importantly, the civilizations that had been absorbed were beginning to regain their independence, emerging as distinct entities within the transformed realm. Earth was no longer under threat, but instead stood at the threshold of unprecedented cosmic cooperation. "We didn't just save our world," Nora told her team as they observed the stable dimensional interface. "We've opened a door to possibilities none of us could have imagined." In challenging a cosmic god, humanity had not only prevailed, they had transformed the very nature of the conflict, turning an existential threat into an opportunity for growth and understanding that spanned dimensions. The breach had become a bridge, and humanity's journey into the cosmos had just begun.